you're going to lose money if you do not structure yourself in the right way. Because there's, I would say, probably still 5 out of 12 investors on a deal do it personally and not through an entity.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the VIP Financial Education YouTube channel. Trying out some new microphone setups here. Leave a comment below whether or not this sounds adequate. We want to continue to fine tune this through the turn of the new year and get this exactly right for you guys into 2024. Speaking of getting things perfectly right going into 2024, I'm bringing back a great guest. We've had her on a number of times through this year, talking about entities and setting things up properly. Abby Broyles is going to be joining me here again today. She's with LegalSphere Group. And last time we spoke, we talked about how to set up your entities correctly, especially if you have partners, multiple properties. This is really applicable if you are choosing to participate in the Maven projects under the Prefer Passive Real Estate Flips projects that are going on around the country at this point. So if that is you now, or you've been considering doing something like that moving forward, listen up to today's episode. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. And I remember just how important this became to me the first year I had a 7-figure year and the IRS came calling for $400,000 in taxes. The idea of protecting your assets from any potential litigation and also making sure you're optimizing on the tax side of things and getting the most deductions possible so you can write off the right things. Having your CPA and your lawyer working in unison was really a highlight of that video. I'm going to leave a link to the video in the description for you guys. If by the end of this video you think there may be questions you need to get answered, you got to hurry up and do it now. This is an urgent video where you guys are going to need to make sure that you're making some important decisions before the end of 2023. And that's what Abby will be touching on with us here today to understand who that might apply to. Now, if you hear something that you think is applicable in your world, email structure@vipfinancialeducation.com and put your first name, last name, and phone number. I'll put that email address here on the screen as well as in the description for you to make it easy to find. I don't want to belabor this video. I want to make it short and sweet and to the point because, again, this is fairly simple when it comes to the steps themselves, but it's complicated in terms of the concepts. And that's why having somebody like Abby there to take care of your questions, you guys can email your contact information, get on the phone with her, have a complimentary consultation, and then she can help you decide whether or not her services might be something that would be worth investing in. I do want to point out at the top of this episode that she has graciously offered everybody here on the channel a 20% discount on her services through the end of this year. That is something that she doesn't have to do, but is generous enough to offer it to you guys. I do appreciate that, Abby. And with that being said, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for answering some of these questions for us. I know they're very important.
Yeah, hey, great. It's good to see Matthew, and it's exciting to talk to people during the holiday season because I know everyone's in the rush to not only shop for their families for gifts and those sort of things, but also kind of get themselves set up for the tax structure in 2024. We've got some changes coming up, but also everybody's looking to save money at the end of the year. So it's a great time to talk about entity structuring and how you can kind of save some money and maybe, I don't know, think about next year and expand your portfolio.
Exactly. So why don't we jump right into that? What would you list as some of the key advantages to actually using a new entity to capitalize on, tax advantages coming into the end of 2023 here in the beginning of 24?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about an LLC structure, you're thinking about how can I best not only protect my assets, so you're wanting to shield your current assets, whether it's your home, your other business, maybe you have some rental property on the side. Setting up that LLC to keep that separated is crucial, but also looking at December, you're looking at how can I benefit from some tax deductions. So look at your current properties. I encourage our clients to look at, okay, if you have some rental properties, fantastic. If you have some passive real estate investments, like we're doing with the Maven projects, which are, fractional lending that's going into these luxury fix and flips that are phenomenal across the country with great returns, you're going to want to have a separate LLC for those things. And what can you write off with those? A lot of people don't think about the write-offs they have at the end of the year. Not only do you have your legal fees, your accounting fees, your LLC setup fees. But in December, a lot of folks are giving extra money to their churches or charities. Salvation Army, you're looking at different organizations in your community that are doing specific Christmas giving to children's and families, that sort of thing. I just made a donation through our law firm for an organization that helps families and kids going through the legal system. And that's completely 100% tax deductible through my law firm LLC. Your LLC as a business person, whether you are doing real estate from a real perspective, if you have your own business, if you're doing passive stuff with Maven, all of those things can be tax deductible. You want to talk to your tax preparer, of course, but it's really key to look at those things in December, because especially if you've formed an LLC, let's say in November, you had your startup costs, you had all these things, you need some extra write-offs. Look at those kinds of things, because going into the end of the year, it's great end of the year giving. It's great to give back. It's great for your community, but also it's great to put on your tax return for next year, and then start thinking about next you're going into 2024, because a lot of folks have great plans for 2024, but having a plan where you're going to not only benefit from the money in your pocket, but also from being able to write off certain things and having a plan that kind of gives you peace of mind going into the new year is crucial. And that's a lot of what we're doing with our clients right now, is kind of getting prepared for January.
So would this be most applicable to people who have not yet set up an LLC and are starting from scratch, or would this be most applicable to reach out for somebody that maybe has existing entities and are wanting to make sure that they have their end of year checklist properly set up? Who is the appropriate person to actually reach out and get some help from you?
Yeah, if you have your own LLC, it's really critical to look through those, just that checklist of what things you need to do. Maybe you don't have a bank account in place. We had a client currently who's an VIP watcher, and he contacted us to get everything enabled with this LLC. He had set up an entity at the beginning of the year. He came to us and we set up an operating agreement. Got him an EIN number, got him a bank account set up. So whenever he's getting a return on his investment, probably gonna come in February, it's one of the Maven passive real estate investments, he'll already have it set up. So when that comes February of 2024, he's already going to have that money in his bank account that we get set up this month with that operating agreement. So everything's in place. A lot of people don't think about, with that structuring, what they need to do whenever they are getting paid on their return, for example. So they may do something in their personal name, which is just fine, but we can still set up an LLC and assign that personally to the entity itself, and they still get the benefits from an LLC, the pass-through taxation, the write-offs from home office to internet expenses to taking their friends out to dinner to talk about arbitrage agreements, everything that we talk about on the channel as far as write-offs. And so if you have something that you did this year and you didn't do it with an entity, with an LLC, that's fine. We can still do it in the month of December and then assign it personally to that entity, and you still get the benefit for 2023. Going into next year, a lot of folks are going to want to think about, okay, how many investments am I going to make next year? What are my goals? Because you may want that tax benefit this year by getting the write-offs for your legal fees, your accounting fees, all the setup fees that are included, whether it's a registered agent service fee. We can do all those things and include it in 2023, but maybe you need those tax breaks in 2024. And that's why we talk to people about their portfolio as a whole, because if it's more beneficial next year, we might encourage them to wait until January 1 to file that LLC.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And a lot of what you've mentioned, again, having gone through some of this myself and tried to trip my way through independently without necessarily all the guidance and support that a firm like yours would have been great to have for me when I was dealing with it, you don't necessarily realize just what goes in without that support. And I remember back when I was first setting up entities, and I've talked about this on the channel before, that, I think I set up 5 in one day at one point way back in the early 2000s. And, not only did I select my names in a really confusing way that sort of have complicated things for my CPAs along the way, but I didn't necessarily realize that when you set up an entity and you register it through whichever state you do, they provide you something along the lines of a tax ID number, but that is not your EIN. right? You actually have to go in and register with, I believe it was an SS4 form to get an actual employee identification number on top of that. So for many months, I only had that original registration through the secretary. I did not have the actual federal EIN number. And that's just one of those easy steps that you can miss, because when you're new to something like this, you think you've gotten what you need, and it just isn't complete. And not that complicated, but it is all the combination of details put together and making sure it's done in the right order and making sure it's done in a timely fashion, where having somebody there next to you to make sure that that checklist is completed properly is paramount. And so I look back on when I was doing it versus having resources like you, and I'm a little envious, honestly, of the viewers that watch these videos and have these different tools at their disposal, because it would have been well worth the price. The cost behind your services is so affordable. It's something that I think personally is probably you're undercharging, especially at a 20% discount. But with that in mind, you've been very fair to our audience overall, and it's so thorough that people can reach out to you and actually speak to you directly. It's not this sort of calling up a law firm and dealing with some sort of a legal assistant or somebody in the office that isn't really the top tier person that I'd rather be speaking with to make sure that I'm not missing something. So I do want to give you a compliment on that you guys have been fantastic with our audience this whole time. Very excited to see who's going to jump at taking advantage of this, because there really is some urgency to make sure your ducks are in a row with the last few weeks of the month here, the last few weeks of the whole year, and going into 2024, that if you are able to benefit still yet here in 2023, that you don't miss that. And I think you touched on a few really great write-offs that people I speak with often are not capitalizing on yet, because they have W-2 position, taxes are being withheld, and they're not benefiting from a lot of the deductions that come from actually creating a business entity, things like fuel for a vehicle, if you are using your car for partially for your business. Like you said, some meals and entertainment can be write-offs if you're having conversations about these topics during those interactions, cell phone use, Wi-Fi use, and all that adds up. I mean, if you're able to save a third of those costs, then why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We're able to help our clients write off about 25% of the profit they would normally get from their real estate investments, especially these higher end passive real estate investments like the Maven deals that we've talked about. But, a lot of folks think, they got a rental property this year, they got an LLC set up, which is fantastic for asset protection. But there are those other things that we mentioned, like just getting that bank account set up for that LLC, maybe getting a credit card to use for that LLC for if you're wanting to buy furniture or light fixtures, new things to fix up that rental property you may have. Maybe you have an STR, maybe you're trying to do a longer term rental. You can look at all of those things in December and think, what can I write off this year? The first step, get that bank account set up, have that operating agreement and the EIN number, because you'll need to take that to the bank to get that bank account. But also think about if you need some lease agreements and other things done right now, not only can you go to our firm and we'll give you that discount, but also you're able to get that done in 2023. And you don't want to come April of 2024 and think, gosh, I wish I'd done that in 2023 and gotten the tax break. But if you really focus on those expenses this year, things you can do ahead of time, that's really crucial, especially going into the next tax year, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers, and especially with clients that we've worked with who have been on the channel, loyal members and viewers of the channel for years, they're looking at expanding their portfolios. So you want to take advantage of not only those benefits in 2023 to the max, but look at how can I best position myself in 2024 to make sure that I'm getting the best tax deductions possible and be able to capitalize on my investments. Because why else would you be a loyal viewer of this channel if you're not trying to make the most money, put the most money in your pocket, and really expand your portfolio? That's why folks are watching, and that's why they're so loyal, is because y'all offer such great opportunities that you really can't find anywhere else. And we really like to support people in their business ventures, and that's a big part of it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you touched on another few great points on that too, as far as having your operating agreement in place along with the entity. formally filed, or you can bring in the articles of organization, because the bank can then provide you those extra bank accounts. A lot of times those big banks will actually offer you business credit cards on site. You don't have to have any history of operations with that business in order to qualify, as long as your personal credit scores can guarantee that you'll repay that credit card. But one of the beautiful things I've talked about on this channel many times is that a business credit card will typically not report to your personal credit report. It is also a great way to help you and your CPA stay organized when it comes to those extra expenses. You can convert some of your costs onto that business credit card that you would have been normally paying through your personal account, and keeping those transaction histories completely separate makes reconciling this at the end of the year so much easier. So I'm glad you mentioned that, just so I could remind some of the viewers about it. You've touched on the Maven stuff and the opportunities that many have taken advantage of already here on the channel. And there's a long waiting list of people that are anxious to jump in a project as soon as they see one that appeals to them. You can join those lists as well and potentially invest in a project moving forward. I'll put the playlist in the description for everybody in case they haven't seen those videos yet, but that is a fantastic investment opportunity. And to your point, big upside return opportunities with what I would consider to be a low risk option when it comes to something that's passive. And it's just that, it's a very passive opportunity where you're essentially waiting for the project to be completed for you by other people, and you get to collect that mailbox money. So being able to convert that business entity into something where you can even write off additional expenses you would have been paying for anyway because of it makes this even better. So with that being said, one more time, structure at VIPfinancialeducation.com is the email address. Make sure you include your first name, your last name, and your contact phone number. Abby and her team will reach out to you guys to make sure that you get your questions answered. You can explain your scenario to her and decide, is there something that still yet needs to be done before the end of the year in order to make sure that you are, in fact, in the best position possible as you wrap up 2023 and get into your next year of growth. So anything else you want to touch on today, Abby?
I just want to encourage people to take a look at their current structure. We just helped one of your other viewers on just getting some things cleaned up. Let's say you have multiple investments in one LLC. We do not want anybody to commingle their assets. That's a huge no-no when it comes to asset protection. We helped a wonderful viewer of the channel who's become a wonderful client to us with separating all of his assets that he had commingled in one LLC. We set up a holding company LLC in Nevada for him. It offers some protection because it's a blind LLC. You can't easily search where he has all of his assets held. That's something that we did, structured everything where his passive real estate investments were in one cell, one entity, and then separated the rest out. So that's something to look at also. Just some housekeeping issues at the end of the year. Looking to next year, if you can better benefit because of things like bonus depreciation that are going to affect your ability to write off some tax deductions next year. Maybe we start your LLC effective January 1. That's something that we can look at to make sure that you have the most savings next year, because as you know, Matthew, you're going to be looking at 60% of capitalizing on any assets you're buying for your business as far as bonus depreciation, kind of accelerating that opportunity to take advantage of the depreciation on your taxes. That's going to go down next year and it's going to phase out in 2027. So if you didn't do it in 2023, take advantage of it for sure in 2024. But going forward, think about that, because that's going to be a factor in the number of dollars you can put in your pocket, because you're going to have that deduction, but you might be able to think of some other creative ways, whether it's charitable donations, whether it is putting your kids on the payroll for your LLC, whether it is doing some other creative things like writing off some other expenses like your home office, your mileage, if you're going to look at properties, that sort of thing. Think about going into that next year, because the best way to save money in 2024 is to be thinking about it in December 2023. So that'd be my last parting advice to your clients and your audience, Matthew.
And that saved me $140,000 worth of tax liabilities from the sewer company this year. So I can definitely attest to that. It was a huge surprise actually for me. I was really excited about seeing that return. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that you've shared. A lot of this stuff I'm not great at. right? And I think a lot of people fall into that camp. Having specialists like you is an absolute necessity to people like me. So I want to thank you for joining me again on the channel. Thank you so much, Abby. We'll bring you back on as we enter into the beginning of 2024. Make sure everybody is prepared to have a great year ahead. But let's make sure we wrap up this year the right way, friends. And if you need anything, certainly let us know. Leave a comment below. Otherwise, email structure@vipfinancialeducation.com with your first name, last name, and phone number. Reach out to Abby and her team. Get that 20% off deal that she's offering right now for you, and make sure all of your ducks are in a row. Till we see you on the next one, guys. Make it a great day. Keep on cash flowing. Take care.